Dip, 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 dip. All right, so yesterday after lunch, I'm blissfully sitting here listening to Dale and Eric banter on about rip and replace, and finding myself agreeing with different points here, other points there. I'd managed to make it through my presentation without stepping on a landmine. I'm enjoying one of my favorite conferences with a bunch of really smart people. Everything was right with the world. And that's when Corey Doon lobbed what I thought would have been a real softball of a question at Dale and Eric about startups and their ability to come into the space and fundamentally change the game. Interestingly enough, and contrary to what Dale and Eric would have you believe, they agreed in their response. They said that our industry was too resistant to change and that they didn't think a startup could have a significant impact. At that point, I suspect Corey and anyone else over on the right-hand side of the room probably thought I was having a seizure. I felt the top of my head peel back and steam start to waft out of my ears. How in the world can two very smart people, very smart industry leaders, sit in front of a room of the most forward-thinking, creative ICS security people on the planet and tell us that a startup cannot fundamentally change our space? Let me remind you of a story from the electric power sector. Specifically, I'll remind you that it wasn't that long ago, the 80s actually, that our grid was primarily protected by electromechanical relays. We were talking about relays with springs and plates shaped like ellipses and curves that had to physically rotate and move in order to create a signal to send to the circuit breaker and open up a line. Then along came a man by the name of Ed Schweitzer who decided that he could make a better system protection relay by using digital electronics. SEL started out with Ed Schweitzer trying to talk a bunch of relay engineers into fundamentally rethinking how they did their jobs. Specifically, he was trying to pry their hands off of their precious electromechanical relays and convince them to trust this little voodoo-powered black box called an electronic or digital relay. Now, this may be obvious to some of you, but for those of you that haven't done a lot of work with electric utilities or even done work with the right departments within an electric utility, their primary purpose in life is to provide safe, reliable, affordable electric power. At the core of this function is the grid protection engineer. They are, excuse me, they are probably not too distant cousins of the people that work on the drink recipe at CocaCola. They tend to be very conservative when it comes to risk and technological change. Relay engineers have got to be some of the most conservative, deeply protected people in all of the ICS space. If they get something wrong, the grid goes down. Wow. And my voice fails. Yeah. Does this count as part of my 5 minutes? So getting those engineers to shift from their time-proven, trusted electromechanical relays to these newfangled, mysterious electronic ones has got to be one of the most impressive entrepreneurial feats of our industry. But he did it. Through diligent work and creativity in a world of very large and long-established relay manufacturers, he introduced a better mousetrap and ushered in the modern world of protective relaying with lower cost, faster protection, more accurate performance, and the industry went through a major technological change in the course of about 10 years. And there is no reason that someone else can't do the exact same thing for ICS cybersecurity tomorrow. For both of you to stand up here and say that startup stands no chance of changing this market is insulting. To say it in this venue, of all venues, is abhorrent. Is this the kind of position we want to communicate as inspiration for people that think just a little bit differently? Don't pay any attention to those unique ideas and perspectives you have. You won't make it in our stodgy old never-change industry. Remind me again why we are here? Let's not whine and cry about all the things that need to change for our industry to do something different. Let's look for the next innovation. Let's look for the Adam Cranes and Chris Sistrunks who say, why not do an open source implementation of DMP3? Let's look for the Luigi Ariamas and Donato Ferrantes who say, why does the vulnerability disclosure market have to work in a certain way? Let's look for the Sergey Bradises and Meredith Pattersons that say, can academic principles be applied to better secure parsers in the real world? We need innovation. I know of no reason dictating that innovation has to come from any particular size or source of company. If you have creative ideas, the entrepreneurial bent, and an interest in ICS security, then by all means, go for it. I'll be rooting for you all the way and happy to help in any way I can.